Do you remember this book?
Yeah.
What is it called?
Snuffle Bunny.
Snuffle Bunny.
So it's called Snuffle. It's called Snuffle Bunny, and the kid locked the bunny in the washing machine.
Yes, at the laundromat. You remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Look at when we open up the cover, you can see Snuffle Bunny. Look at Snuffle Bunny's in there. What shape is that?
A circle.
A circle. All right, let's see what happens.
Is that?
What shape is that? Well, why don't you tell me?
What is it? A leaf. So it's a leaf shape with a long. So do you know what this is? It has long lines together. What is it?
It looks kind of like an egg, doesn't it?
No, what is it?
What is it?
It's a leaf.
So the technique that I'm using at the very beginning to introduce the picture book is having the child be the center of the story. So instead of me saying, this is what we're going to do, the child can ask questions and kind of be an agent of their own learning. Also, I'm asking lots of open-ended questions. Instead of just yes or no questions, I can ask, what do you think is going to happen? What shapes do you see? What is the last time that we read this? What do you remember about this book? That is getting the child engaged in the book and excited to read. Not so long ago, before she could even speak words, Trixie went on an errand with her daddy. And who's that?
Rossi, come on.
Who's that?
I think I'll get stay on the bed and rest for a little bit.
Okay,
she's
we'll let
just
the
gonna
dogs
for
rest.
a little while.
Okay.
Yeah. So who's that? And what is the dad holding? What do you think that is? Dirty stuff? Yeah. Another thing that you can do to engage your child in this story is to read a sentence but not finish it and have the child finish it for you. And then they can look in the illustrations to see what the clue could be. So when I say Trixie went on an errand with her and then point to the illustration of the daddy, the child is using they're recalling and they're looking to the context cue in the picture to see what that word is. So let's see what happens to Snuffle Bunny. Trixie and her daddy went down the block. Can you pretend? Down the block. We're gonna walk. Through the park. Past the school and into the... Yes, and where you wash clothes, that's called a laundromat.
Yeah, the laundry mat. So it's like the washing clothes.
Exactly, that's where you go to.
And is he gonna put the bunny in there?
What do you think?
I don't know.
Do you remember? Another thing you might notice is that I'm not always reading everything completely as the page. I'm not dictating everything. I'll stop in the middle of a sentence and kind of talk about the colors and the shapes, or ask him questions, and that's okay. You don't always have to read the whole book. You can skip pages, you can make up your own story. These types of things are totally a great way to engage your child in the book. She even got to put the money into the machine. Wow. And then what happened?
The bunny!
What happened? The bunny went inside the machine. Do you think that she meant for that to happen? Probably not, right? I don't think so. Snuffle Bunny looks kind of sad. She got stuck.
Snuffle Bunny's sad.
What do you think? Do you think he's sad? Yeah, that's, sometimes mistakes and accidents happen. It's okay to feel sad sometimes.
Yeah, so the other day I was fighting with Mommy and I just cried, right?
Yes.
Remember?
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, so
Yeah, and then did it get better eventually? After a little while?
Yeah, I just got better just a little teeny tiny bit.
Okay. So as you can see, Victor's engaging in a lot of different emotions, and that's a lot of kids can feel one thing, you know, in 1 second, and then very quickly after can feel something else. And that's okay. It's okay to encourage the different feelings. When I ask if Nuffle Bunny's sad, he says, yeah, he is. And then he starts talking about his own feelings of sadness and how that happened a couple days ago. And that's actually a really good thing because the child is building resilience and self-knowledge, things, how they handle their own emotions, and knowing that, you know, if you are sad, things can pass. Because a block or so later...
He's so serious.
I know. Trixie realized something. What did she realize?
The bunny.
What about the bunny? It's in the washing machine. Trixie turned to her daddy and said, Eggle, flaggle, clabble. Can you say that? No. That's right, replied her daddy. We're going home. Aggle, flaggle, clabble. Blaggle, plabble. Wumby, flappy. Snurp. Another thing that you can do is point to the words as you read them, and that will help something called print awareness, which is a fancy term for a child understanding that the words and the letters on the page represent something, and you're speaking them and they represent something in the story. Now, please don't get fussy, said her daddy. Well, she had no choice. She bawled. She went boneless.
And she fell out of Daddy's arm.
Yeah, she fell into Daddy's arms. She's trying to make herself weight, so he has to carry her. Make herself really heavy. She did everything she could to show how unhappy she was. But by the time they got home, her daddy was unhappy too. He has not had an easy day, has he? But he doesn't know what happened, right?
The daddy just like just like falling, and the man just like it can fall all the dog ear stuff in.
Yeah, you're right. He's looking at him, and the daddy looks a little embarrassed. Another thing that you have seen me do is a lot of encouragement and a lot of listening. So when the child points to something on the page, I never say, shh, you know, you're interrupting the story. That a child won't be encouraged to kind of think critically then and become an agent in the story. So instead, when he points to something or when he says something out loud, you know, I listen, and I might add on, or I might ask another question to try to like make a prediction about what he thinks is going to happen next. So the child gets some self-confidence to be able to, that will help them be able to read later because they'll feel like I'm part of the story. As soon as Trixie's mommy opened the door, she asked, "Where's Nuffle Bunny?" Uh-oh, dun dun dun. Now, look at Trixie. Look at her eyes.
She looks so nuts. She looks so angry.
Yeah, she's angry.
Oh, wait, I got some.
What do you want to show her?
Her hair.
Her hair. It's all flat, isn't
Her
it?
hair.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's so funny.
What?
The whole family ran down the block. Should we run? Pretend we're running?
I think I should run like sideways, like past Opal's tail and like run back.
You want to do that?
Yeah, so where my Opal's tail was so.
Okay, you want to pretend? We're going to run. Run, 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 run. Run through the park. Run through the park. You did it. Good job.
I think like.
All right, so there are different types of learners. There's learners that learn through visual, looking at pictures and graphs and things. There's learners that, as they're called auditory learners. As they listen, the sounds and the noises and the words, that's how they learn. And then there are kinesthetic learners who learn through their body. And a lot of younger kids have we all have different pieces of those. We're not necessarily just one type of learner. Victor, in this case, is very kinesthetic. He's using his body. As you see, he's squirming around a lot. He's kind of looking over, and then he looks at me, and he gets up. That's okay. A lot of formal settings require kids to have to sit down and sit up straight and always listen. And listening and being able to hold your attention is very important. But a one-on-one reading at home, kids are going to learn through their bodies. And the instance where Victor gets up and actually acts out the running, that's really wonderful because he's engaging in pretend play, dramatic play, and he's envisioning himself as part of the story. And that's really, really great for early development.
I just run that way by the mirror.
Oh, they zoomed past the school and into, remember, what does this say? Where did they go into? Do you remember that word where you wash your clothes?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it's called?
Yeah.
What?
What?
They ran into the laundromat. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yep, that's where you wash your clothes.
The mommy was falling too.
Yes, the mommy's there too. She's the one that asked, "Where's Snuffle Bunny?" She knew. Trixie's daddy looked for Snuffle Bunny. They looked and looked and looked and looked. Could they find Snuffle Bunny? No. Snuffle Bunny was nowhere to be found. So Trixie's daddy decided to look harder. Harder. Until Snuffle Bunny! This whole process is called dialogic reading, which just means that your experience with the book is a dialogue between you and your child. It's not necessarily just reading the book from start to cover, the words exactly as they are on the page. You can literally make the story anything that you want. Another thing that I'll say is if it's a bad time for a story, if your child is very sleepy or is having a tantrum or just doesn't feel like a good time, you can always leave the book and come back later. There's no reason to force reading on a child at all because you don't want your child to have a negative experience with a book.
He's all wet.
Yes, you're right, he is all wet, but he's clean and he's finally rescued. Look do you think Trixie's happy? I think so.
I think he's really serious.
Really?
Yeah, so.
She looks pretty excited to me, don't you think? Maybe she's seriously excited. Yeah. And those were the first words. Her hair. Her hair. Well, Snuffle Bunny were the first words that Trixie ever said. That looks so fun. And look there's Snuffle Bunny again. Stuck. The end. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I think
Lastly, I'll say that the most important thing is to have fun. To choose books that both you and your child really, really enjoy. That means you can repeat the same book over and over and over, even though it might get a little boring for you. Repetition is actually really wonderful for a child, and it builds their confidence. And then they'll start to hear the same words and connect those words to the letters on the page. And also just being silly, being expressive, doing voices, all of those things are showing your child that you are enjoying the book and you are your child's first and best teacher. And if you can model enjoyment of the book with the child, they will see that you're a reader and that you love reading, and you can engage in that lifelong reading and learning together. Thank you so much for watching.